All right, so today we're going to go with a new part file. So we're going to go File, and New, and make a part file. Okay, on this part file, when it comes up, we're going to start a new sketch. For this new sketch, it doesn't matter with what we're going to be doing today. Just pick a plane. It does not matter which plane. So eeny, meeny, miny, and mo. There we go. All right, so once you pick that new plane, we're going to start with drawing a rectangle. So pick your rectangle command. And put a rectangle somewhere around your origin that looks something similar to that. Kind of a wide, skinny-ish rectangle. Something like that. Okay? Everybody good on the rectangle? All right. So once you have this rectangle in, then next, I want you to go through there. And you know what? I really kind of messed up on this. I don't want that rectangle there. I want to delete that rectangle out. So to delete this out, I want you to do this. Click and hold above or below, wherever. Click and hold, and then drag your mouse around. And notice it puts that box around there, much like it did in CAD. Let go. It selected everything, and then hit delete. So, all right, we deleted that rectangle out because I messed up. I didn't want it that shape of rectangle. I actually wanted it more so a rectangle that was like this. I wanted it more of a square right around the origin. So, square right there, like, oops, right like that. There we go. That's much better. That's much more what I wanted. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape so I have nothing selected. And now I'm just going to go ahead and horizontally and vertically constrain that. So I'm going to go to my horizontal and vertical constraints, pick the midpoint of that top line, and go down to my origin. Oh no, my origin's gone. What happened? Why is my origin gone? Oh, whenever I put that box around there, I deleted out my origin. That's what it was. Ah, shoot, I got to hit escape now. I messed up. My origin's gone. I can't do anything now because my origin's gone. I wish that Inventor would not make it so easy that you could delete out your origin. Origins are kind of important. We reference to that origin a lot. But yet Inventor's made it so easy that you just select it and hit delete and your origin's gone. And that's too easy, I think. I think they should make it to where you have to right click on it, do something special, delete it. Oh, but they don't. So since they didn't, there's been multiple people that have had this issue and got rid of their origin. Here at the beginning, what I tell you is your easiest way to get your origin back is just go Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Ah, there my origin's back. Now I have my origin on my drawing. So go ahead and do that. Pull your origin back, and you got your origin there. So instead of doing what we did, on this drawing and say, I drew my rectangle the wrong shape. If you need to adjust your rectangle, just hit escape and grab the rectangle and drag it around, here. If you want to do rectangle, more of a really pretty square around it. A better option than selecting it and hitting delete is just resize your rectangle to whatever size you might want it to be. A lot of the people I've helped when they delete out their origin, when I go back, it looks like they deleted out a rectangular-ish shape that was very similar to what they just redrew after they redid it. So there really was no purpose to delete it out to help them, for most of the ones I've seen. If you do, for some reason, need to delete it out, a better option would be maybe going like this, deleting out that side of it, deleting out that side, and now that you know it's important not to delete out your origin, doing it that way instead of selecting that dot and deleting it out of there. Now here, however, I do want you to delete your dot out because you can get this dot back, but I just haven't showed you that. I don't like to show you that on the first couple days you use Inventor. I want you to get used to the origin, why the origin is important, before I show you how to bring it back. If you don't have a reason or a need to have the origin, bringing it back doesn't really seem important. But now that you know that the origin has a reason, delete it out, and I'll show you the way to get it back. Because if you're, say, 14 steps down the road, I don't want you to have to undo 14 steps to get back to have your origin back. If you're 1 or 2 steps in, sure, it's just as easy to go Control Z and undo it and bring it back. But if you're 14 steps in, that's a little bit more difficult. So what you do to bring back your origin is this. Come over here to your list on the left. On the list on the left, hit the plus sign on where it says origin. So click that plus sign, and it brings up all these details here. If we hover over these, you'll see your different planes here. We start at the top of the YZ plane. The XY plane happens to be the plane I'm on. The XY plane, the X-axis, the Y-axis, the Z-axis, and then notice the center point. Center point is back there. The center point is your origin there. But notice, here is the center point, no center point. Center point, no center point. So it's kind of difficult to come over here and get your constraint, pick this midpoint of the line, and then come over here real quick, hover over that, and get back. See, you can't do this quick enough to get back over there to click your second point. So that really doesn't work. What you do need to do is this. And you'll use this later on some of the more complex things we start to do. Up here in this top bar, about a third of the way over, is something called Project Geometry. Click on this button that says Project Geometry. Then come over here and hover over your center point and click on it. And now your origin is back. You've projected the geometry of that origin. Now it's back. Now you can easily do this, and go ahead and do this with me. You can easily center this thing up horizontally and vertically by now having your origin back. Go ahead and dimension this thing. I don't care what size you make it. You don't even have to make it a size. Just dimension it. So you now have a fully constrained all black drawing. You want your drawings to be all black. That all black makes sure they're fully constrained there. Nothing can be moved around. You have no blue left on your drawing. And remember, that's something I'm definitely going to be looking for when I grade your Inventor drawings. So that is all black and all locked in there in one place. All right, everybody good? Got your all black drawings? Okay. Try to get it there, and we'll go with the next thing here in just a second. Okay, so the next little tidbit. I am going to go ahead and take mine off the screen, and actually I want you to do that too. Go ahead and Control-Z back to where you're left with just the origin. We could have started well, I went one step too far. So we just have our origin there. Let's draw another rectangular shape, but this time we are going to use the line command because there's just one little tidbit here I want to show you on this. So let's start our line or our rectangle by drawing a straight line on the bottom. So make sure your constraint shows up that says you're parallel to the origin. Then on this one, make this a crooked line. So on purpose, don't lock it in perpendicular there. So make it over to like so, and then finish off the rest of your rectangle correctly to where that goes to there, dotted line going there, and this goes back down to my original start point, and there we got my rectangle. All right. So now with this, some of the people I've came and helped, this has been an issue. That, you know, again, you're new, you're somewhat new at Inventor, and you didn't get this one made perpendicular here. So instead of just deleting this out and starting over, a better option is this, especially if you have a kind of a complex drawing. We have a bunch of constraints up here. What constraint am I missing here? Perpendicular. Do you see something up here in this list of constraints that would help us with that? There's one called perpendicular. So if you go there and click on that one called perpendicular, come back down here, what I'm missing is this corner being perpendicular. So I'm going to make and click on that line, click on that one. Now that perpendicular constraint is added in there. And now you can go about doing your drawing just normally by adding in that perpendicular constraint. So if you miss it, you can always add them in up here. It will automatically add those things if you take your time and you make sure that perpendicular shows up. Whoops, see there, my perpendicular did not show up. Did for my first little tiny chunk of line. Why I got two different lines there, I don't know. But if you're careful, it'll show up. But if you miss it, you can always add them back in using this. Okay? So now with that, we're done with this portion of it. Go ahead and I want you to open up your page 81A assembly. Page 81A assembly. I have that here somewhere. There we go. There's my page 81A assembly. So get that open and we'll... Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do to this one is, notice when I hover here over my parts. So here I'm hovering over this piece of it. Notice it highlights it over here with a little box around it when I hover over that. So this is my part 81A top A-1. This is my -2. Here's my -3, my -4, and my part -5. So there are my 5 different parts for this thing. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to get rid of my part 5. You do not need to get rid of your part 5, but I'm going to just delete mine out of there. And then I'm going to put it back in and we're going to talk a little bit about it. So let me place back in my part 5 and there we go. All right. So I'm going to start and just do a couple constraints here real quick. We can constrain that portion to here. Now, here is something as I'm constraining this. I never really talked to you specifically about because I'm just so used to doing it quickly. But now, from here, I want you to adjust if you haven't been doing things this way. When you constrain, it's always best to constrain to a grounded object. So remember, this base piece, the first piece you put in, should always be grounded. It's locked in place with that thumbtack. So it's grounded in there. So a good practice is to always constrain to a grounded piece if possible. So for example, here I'm going to mate that one, and I'm going to mate it here to the grounded piece. Better to mate it to this piece here that's grounded than it is to mate it to this piece that is just constrained. The reason for that is, if I ever had to move or change out this part or delete this part, if I delete this out, anything that I have constrained to it will then have errors on it because it's no longer there. You're probably not going to get rid of or delete out your base piece of it. So there I got that first constraint in there. I'm going to go ahead and then mate again. I'm going to mate this surface. Again, instead of mating to here, I'm going to go right here and mate to this because that's part of the base block. I'm going to apply that. And now I'm going to look at this. Oh, well, actually, I'm upside down. I need to flip this around, but I messed up on my constraints. I did it wrong. So I mated this to the top surface. That shouldn't have been mated there at all. I did that wrong. That should have been a flush. So again, the way that you're going to edit this, don't delete it out and start over. Instead, change it and correct your constraints. So for example, again, this is highlighted here. It's this piece right here. So we're going to open it up with a plus sign. And here I can see my different constraints. If I hover over these, it'll highlight the constraints. So notice, if I hover over this one, the two surfaces I clicked on are highlighted. So I mated it to that top flat piece to the bottom of my other pieces. The two parts I mated together. Next, here, I mated together that surface that shows there to the triangular surface of the other part. So it highlights the mates so I can see what they actually are. The mate I need to change is this one. I did it wrong. It needs to be a flush. You can't really change this to a flush here, but what you can do is just right click on it and delete out that mate. So now I no longer have this mated to there, and I can correct this and do it the way I wanted it. So which is constrain. I didn't want the mate, but I wanted the flush. I'm going to change this to a flush. I'm going to flush that part to the underneath side of this one right there. Apply that. Close that back out. Hit my F6. And oops, I got another block over there, but that'll come later. So now that's flipped upside down there. And now this is mated in there correctly, or sorry, flushed correctly there on the top. And now the only thing that I really have left is to flush this end of it. So I can go constrain again and pick my flush and flush this. Again, that is that grounded piece and flushing it to there. Apply that, and there we're golden. We're good to go. All right. All right. So now next, what we're going to look at is in your book, you should have done letter A. That's what we did all together, or not all together. That's what you did from the video. And then you had two other to choose from. I have two examples of letter K in the book. One is correct, one is incorrect. Let me show you those two different examples. So right here is letter K. Does this look like letter K from the book? Approximately. Yes, it does. But however, this is not what you're supposed to do. When you looked and we did letter A here on this one, the first thing you did is you drew your base block. So here's your base block. If you look at this, part number 1 is the part from the book, is letter A from the book. Looks just like the book or very similar to it. Then you added in 4 other parts to make a total of 5 to make this a rectangular solid. On this one, what has been done is they've made an assembly of these 5 parts, assembled those 5 parts together to look like letter K. That's not what your assignment is. Your assignment is more so, let me find the correct one here, I think it's this one. Your assignment is more so this, where you drew one part is letter K for this example. You drew another part here, that's the next part of it. I made this just so I could insert this block into it. I made this part where this block goes inside of there. So there's my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. And then they are here assembled together into a rectangular solid. That's what you're working towards on this assignment, is making the letter K or the letter M or the letter N into a rectangular solid from there. So making your base part, again, look just like the book, and then making 4 other parts that'll make that into a rectangular solid. That makes sense? All right. In my